All right. Peace, 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 peace. Greetings, everyone. It's Chief Yuya. Of course, as always, if you can hear me, please just throw a one or two or one, two or whatever into the chat space so that I know I'm not speaking to myself. Okay, nine. That works. All right, cool, cool. So, greetings, everyone. Oh, let me fix that. Greetings, everyone. Good dawning, those of you. And, of course, for those new ones who'll be coming in who may not know who I am, I'm Chief Yuya. All right, and this is our Sabbath cipher, first one of the month, I suppose. This is the first one of the month. All right, so we're going to get into something real quick. Name codes, right? So we got a couple of fitting things that's happening, coming into our new Gregorian that's getting ready to pop off soon. Oh, and peace to all of you. I see you all in chat. Let me just greet you, Brother Haru and Sister Precious, Kwanda, Logan, top tier speakers, top tier speakers. Brother Zach, Kwanda. I don't know if I said you already. Deidre and Manera and Sister Arlene. Okay, Brother Chris, Cassie Derwin, you know, and yeah, Brother Cruz. Yeah, and for everybody else who'll be coming in, greetings to all of you. I will that you are resting up like you're supposed to, and getting some of that good time to go inward and to meditate a bit. But anyway, let's get to it. This is not going to be a long one, right? So a lot of times when I'm kind of working with you all with certain situations or um, just certain levels of teaching, you'll often hear me say that focus on the concrete before you go to the abstract, right? Because there's a tendency towards escapism often, so we spoke about that a little bit last night. We had a beautiful shema call, that happens every Friday for those of you newcomers on this channel, 6:30, somewhere around there, just what I mean, 6:30, 7. When I do them, I'm usually much later than that, but around sunset essentially. But one of the things that we got to speak about was the just the idea of family planning, having children. Okay, 6:30, 6:30, unless it's me. But I don't really do them that often anyway, so let's just say 6:30 pretty much is the standard. But yeah, and it's a good way to close out your strong, or what you may say you're weak. It's a good way to close it out, just to get some good family group vibes. You know what I mean, going into your time of rest. But anyway, so you often hear me talk about, make sure that you deal with the concrete or what's three-dimensional before you go to the meta dimensions, or to the unseen, or the things that you can't touch, or the things that we would consider abstract. And sometimes, like I said, as a form of escapism, people will they'll go to the abstract first because they're having too much trouble dealing with and mitigating their current physical reality, right? And sometimes people go to the abstract through offense. Like I've often told you, the ego, it survives off of offense. It's always offended. It's always, you hurt my feelings when you said this. You hurt my, the feelings are always hurt. It's always offended. It's always insecure. It's always feeling guilty about something, which is another form of offense against the heart. You're offending your own heart in that sense. But you know um so a lot of times what we'll use some form of fantasy to escape, and sometimes that fantasy is projecting accountability onto someone or something else. That's a fantasy, as opposed to concretely sitting down and saying, you know what, maybe I got myself into this, and what could I have possibly have done different, you know um devoid of emotion, in terms of our really trying to reason and figure that thing out, right? So that's just a part of growing up. Basically, that's just a part of growing up, right? So we're going to deal with some concrete stuff real quick, and then we're going to go to something that you may consider more abstract. I don't know, right? So let's start here. DeFi, right? What does DeFi have to do with name codes? Follow along. So, what is DeFi? A lot of you may be hearing that term tossed around now more and more within financial circles and financial talks. DeFi simply stands for decentralized finance. That's it. Decentralized finance. So you have what's called DeFi, and then you have what's called CeFi. Now, I think you could probably guess on what CeFi stands for: centralized finance, right? And the whole concept there. Let's go back to something for a second. If you can go back here, you might not be able to. It may not make sense to you. Um, some of you may remember many years ago. Sometimes you would go into a bank, or even some states they call it MVC. New York, we call it DMV, driver's motor vehicle. Some places, the motor vehicles commission or whatever acronym they come up with. At the end of the day, it's all illegal anyway. You get a license to drive. Anyway, I don't want to get off into that. So some of you may have come into one of those environments, or even any state-ran agency, and you're trying to get something done, and they tell you the system is down, right? So back then, or let's say back in the 80s, even up through the 90s for a large degree, many of those systems or many of those institutions, they ran what we call mainframe systems, right? So what they had at their desks, or what their kiosks, what you came and stood up to, was what we just call the dummy terminal. So the dummy terminal was just a screen and a keyboard, but all of the action, all of the commands, all of the processes happen on this large mainframe computer that was usually in the basement somewhere, or just in another room somewhere. But it was one centralized computer that was handling everything. So if that computer went down, then they would say the system is down, everything's down, we can't pull up this, we can't pull up your records. And you would see everybody behind the counter just talking, just joking and laughing. Oh, we wait, well, when will it be back up? Maybe after lunch. They don't know, whenever the IT person figures out what happened to the Novell mainframe. And some of them were Novell. That was an old operating system that was used on those big mainframe computers. I know because I used to work on them, right? So you had this idea of everything being centralized, right? So if there's a problem in one, or let's say someone hacks the mainframe. If someone hacks the mainframe, now they have access to everyone's information. They have access to everyone's stuff, right? And we're now well within our early 2000s, right? So I guess the assumption. Okay, so I'm sorry, I got a message. um, so the assumption there would be, now within the early 2000s, the assumption there would be, well, now we've learned to create more systems of redundancy. Everything is not sitting on one server, so forth and so on. Yes and no. Of course, now we're in the era of microprocessing, microcomputing. What is microcomputing? Instead of there being a main computer that sits on a main frame, everyone has their own system, but they usually are tied back into one server, right? Here's the thing though, it's still centralized. So for instance, if that main server goes down in whichever bank, you could choose whichever one you want, right? I don't even want to say any names because, you know, but let's say the running bank, the one that runs you down, run bank. So let's say the main computer goes down in run bank, then across the system is going to be an issue. Or let's say if there's a mistake in that main computer in run bank, right? Then that particular issue now will have to be resolved by that particular institution, right? It's no different than like internal affairs. policy agents do something that they shouldn't, and in order to straighten it out, they investigate themselves. So everything is very centralized and everything is very self-contained. Is that good for you? Usually, no. Usually, it's not good for you, right? So that's the idea, if you can picture it, through all that explanation of having something centralized. Now, nowadays, for the most part, the old model is centralized finances. So, what does that mean? That means all of my if I'm at Run Bank, right? All of my information is there, right? So if you want to perform any sort of financial transaction with me, you have to communicate with them however they want to be communicated with. So therefore, if I transfer something to you or you transfer something to me, 3 to 5 days, 7 to 10 days, whatever it is, right? Because it's a very clumsy and very slow system where maybe you're at maybe you want to send me something from the pals that pay, and I'm using the run bank, and now we have to wait a certain amount of days and whatnot in order for one thing to get sent over to the other one. Because why? It's centralized. So I got my door over here that's closed. You got your door over there that's closed. We have to figure out how we can speak to each other, right? Centralized finances. Whole bunch of problems with that, of course, as you can imagine, especially for someone who may be consciously aware. You recognize that all your eggs are in one basket. Number one. You recognize, number two, that you don't really have much control over your economy, which is um, antithetical of the concept of an economy. An economy means to manage the hand of the home, the life of the home, but the hand of the home, right? So the hand of the home means I'm handling the home, right? So the things that allow me to handle the home are my economy. So if I put my stuff into something that I don't have any control over, then I have no control over my economy. If I could go there one day, put my little plastic card in the machine and say, hey, I need this out, and they say, oh, there's a problem with your card right now, and we won't be open for another 2 days or another one day or whatever, or the person who handles that won't be in until this day, or you need to call the corporate office, and I don't have control over my own stuff, right? So, with that being said, so that's centralized. Now, decentralized is a concept where we now take everything and we have more control over it. Not only that, but we also have a distribution network where there's more verified sources of what's actually going on. Now, what does that mean? Why does that matter? Okay, so I sent something to you, right? You didn't get it, and then you call your institution, say, "Oh, somebody sent something to me. I didn't get it." They say, "Well, we have no record of that. Go back and talk to the institution." So you're on the phone or you're walking back and forth for several days because no one has a record of something that was sent to you. As opposed to what we have in decentralized finance, we have this system that sits along something that you've heard about. Some of you might be like, "Oh, I know about all that." Some of you may be like, "Oh, I'm good. I've heard these terms and know what they were." I know some of you don't know. Blockchain, the blockchain, right? So what is the blockchain? Let's I'll give you something real simple, and I'll get into it deeper at another time, but this isn't the blockchain talk, but you're going to get something concrete before we go into the abstract. So the blockchain is, look at it simple as I do. The way I look at it is like, even though it's chain, you can look at it as a train, right? So it's a train that travels all around from different computers or different nodes, right? We could say computers for now, different nodes, right? And there's information that's inside of, how box trains have different box cars, right? There's the cars that carry different things, whether it be coal or whether it be a coal car that's carrying food or something like that. But these different cars carry different things. They're all attached to the same train, and they're traveling all around the world, right? So it's just so the block itself is like the car. The box car can only carry but so much, right? You might have a container on top of your box car. Maybe the container is 10 by 20, 10 feet by 20 feet, right? So whatever you can fit within that 200 square foot space, that 10 by 20 space, then that becomes the full capacity of that particular block or that particular box, right? But if I want to add more, Then I'll add another car onto it, add another car onto it, add another car onto it, right? And then I chain them together. There you have the blockchain, right? At least the container concept of the blockchain. Now, what's inside of the blockchain? Programs, right? So let's say, for instance, I want to send someone some funds, right? And we're both operating on the blockchain. And I say, okay, I'm going to send you, I don't know. We're using Ethereum as a means of transport, right? As a means of transport. Okay, so I say I'm going to send you two Ethereum coins. Two Ethereum coins right now is about, in US dollars, probably about $8,500, 84, $8,500, somewhere around there, right? So I say I'm going to send you two Ethereum coins, right? And once I send those coins, that particular person has an address, right, that they control. Now, that address has a public key and it has a private key, right? So look at it like this: someone comes to your front door, they want to get in, right? Now everybody knows your front door address, no big deal. There's a public key, right? Maybe there's even two doors, right? So you can give the public key out, no big deal, because in order for them to get inside, that public key has to talk to a private key. So say you have a private key or another lock inside of your house, right? You have another lock inside your house. You got a lock outside your house, you got a lock inside your house. The lock is the public one, like a foyer, you could even say, and then there's a private one. But in order for that person to get in, or whatever that transaction to get in with the public key, they have to match up with the private key, right? Which is what you hold and what you control, right? That immediately now gives you a measure of control over your financial domain. We'll say that, because the blockchain holds more than finance. It holds transactions. It holds ledgers. I'll give you a great example of what you can hold and how it gets sent all over. So let's say, for instance, again, let me go back to this example, then I'll share that. I send the person two coins, right? It's about 84, 8,500 today. Tomorrow's gonna be something else. So tonight it'll be something else. Within 5 minutes, it's gonna be something else. It moves up and down, right? But that's how much it's worth around today. I know that. Once that transaction is done, I give them my public key. Here's my public key. My public key then has a conversation with my private key. They send it to my public address, right? My public address is linked to my private key, but they can't see that private key because it's private. All right. So they send the two coins to my public key. As soon as they send it, within seconds, really, there's a record that's put inside of one of those box cars. It's dropped in. Someone just sent this particular address this much in tokens, right? And then within a minute or less, that record is duplicated across the train. So imagine the train's going around, right? And in different cars, that ledger or that record is being dropped into it. Boom, boom. Sent two from here, sent two from there to there, to there, to there, to there, to there, to there. Now, what happens is, let's say, because people say things like, but this, what if it's not safe? What if they con me? Well, if I change the record in one of those cars, remember the train that's going, if I go inside and try to change the record in one of them, it has to be changed, excuse me, on all of them, which is impossible. You can't do that, right? So it's like, look at it like, if I write a note to you, it could be like a series of letters or a series of words, and I give you 30 copies of it. And I say, okay, now I want you to go to 20 different states, take this note and bury it in different places. Okay. So now someone finds one of the notes, or maybe I keep one on me. Somebody steals my wallet and they take the note. Ooh, I got the note, and they change some of the numbers on it. Doesn't really matter because there's 29 other copies that you can't get access to. You see, that's decentralizing, or what we call DeFi, right? Or a basic concept of DeFi, and all of this moves along the blockchain, right? And again, if you could look at it just as a chain if you want, for me, I just the train thing just made more sense to me. But you could look at it, yeah, it's a chain that goes all around, right? So I'm gonna give you an example of the power of it. I mean, we're just tapping into it at this point. But part of the power of it is this. There was a woman some years ago who had a case or had a situation on her job where her supervisor had sexually assaulted her, right? And when she took the case to the police, I guess there was some particulars of it where it really just didn't come off, right? But it really did happen. This was a very powerful person this happened with. What she did was she created a transaction on the blockchain, right? And she just sold like a little bit of, like it was a small, like let's say pennies. Like I'm gonna send a penny from this person to that person, right? But what she did was inside of the memo, you know how like when you write a check, you could put a note or a memo on the check? What she did was inside of the transaction in the memo space, she copied, she put the police report and she put all of these text exchanges between her and the person who assaulted her, right? So now what did that do? It's there forever. You can't remove once it's on the blockchain, it can't be removed. Right. So it's not like if I went to a precinct and said, here's all of the evidence that I have on this situation. And as so often the criminal justice system does, they just wipe their behind with that. You go in there with your complaint, whatever, get lost, yeah, we'll look into it. So what she did, she put it on the blockchain. So now, literally, right now, you could go look at it. I could go look at it. Anybody could look at it forever, right? Because what's put on that chain is there's certain aspects of it that are public, right? So it's a way to even decentralize certain communications or decentralize certain aspects of our activism, whether it be our financial warfare, our financial activism, excuse me, or whether it be our social warfare and our social activism. Okay, blockchain. Now let's get to our names. Now you might say, what does that have to do with name codes of the Bible? Right? Nothing. Ain't got nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. Why does it have to? Do you need the information? Yes. Which one do you think you need more? I even grow tired as a teacher of esoterics and metaphysics and spiritual information. I grow tired of like a bunch of non-doers with a bunch of irrelevant spiritual information. You know what I mean? Like, so you gonna get both. And if you try to, I know how you super deep spiritual people will do. Well, no, if you think about it, it is really. It's not. It's mismatch, like polka dots and stripes. Okay. Now let's get into something, all of you doers, because now I don't want you guys to be ignorant of important world affairs. You've heard me say so many different times that when we study Orisha, it's not so that we can find something to worship. At least unless you're approaching it from a loser's perspective. From a loser's perspective, oh, I'm gonna go to the water and give mama this, and mama gonna tell me what to do. And yeah, that's the loser's perspective. But the reality is when you're reborn, when we get initiated, like when I'm asked how old I am by certain people, they're not talking about when I came out of mama's bush. They're talking about when I was reborn into this particular tradition, right? So when you experience that rebirth, it's supposed to rebirth the mind, and there's a different level of accountability that you take on now because your parentage changes. When we're first born, we're children of the earth, right? And sometimes we get cool with it. We'll say like, "Oh, I'm a child of the sun." That's still a physical object. It's like saying I'm a child of a dead tree trunk or something. Um, but when you're rebirthed, you now get rebirthed through spirit and fire. So now, no, I'm a child of the Elohim. I'm a child of the Most High. I'm working with something different now. So my wisdom and my knowledge and my activities don't derive themselves from earthly reaction. Oh, they doing this, they doing that. Who cares what they doing? Let's go up higher. Oh, let's go in deeper. you know what is I doing? What is I doing? What is I knowing? What is I seeing? And when I say I, I'm not talking about me, you, yeah. I'm talking about the I as in the collective energy of the Most High, right? So anyway, as I was fiddling, and I guess I never did it. I meant to share the segment, but screw it. I mean, I don't mean screw it. I know it's children in the room. Fudge it. Um, yeah, I forgot to do it. But as I was fiddling with it, I meant to share it out. But anyways, but I took a couple of notes real quick. Let's get into the name thing. And as we get into the name thing, I want to say something, right? Man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed Elohim will come down, and his death shall comfort the despairing. I'm going to say it again slower. So, and I want you to think about, I want you to think about that, and I want you to see where we're going with it. Okay, man is appointed moral sorrow. Man is appointed moral sorrow, but the blessed Elohim will come down teaching and will comfort the despaired or the despairing. Okay. So just make a note of that. Those of you who are wise enough to make notes, to create notes, just make a note of that, right? Now let's get into our names, right? So within our books, we have, see if I can pull up a book. That's how old heads be in the bodega looking at their lottery tickets, mumbling to themselves. Yeah, mumbling to themselves. Guess that's me now. But anyway, so within the books, we have a part, like if we read Genesis, for instance, remember we went into Genesis recently? There's an aspect of Genesis a lot of times that a lot of us that we skip over it, just not even in Genesis and in different books too, because it just doesn't seem as relevant or as important, right? So just like how I'm just taught you something about DeFi, and you might feel like, well, that's the future. What do I care about the future? I got to deal with the now, even though that is the now. But you may hear something like that and be like, no, I want to deal with the present. And sometimes we do the same thing, when we hear about things in the past, quote unquote, in in our teachings, and we say, well, let me deal with what's right now. And one of those things that comes up often is when we start getting into the genealogy. And that's like one of the biggest mistakes that we make, especially as original people, because once you realize what you are in the face of the cosmos, you want to know genealogy. Just like we go to different DNA companies. Oh, I got myself traced here. And the information isn't accurate. You could go back to the same company, get a DNA test again, and you'll get different results. It would be more wise to take some time and learn about genetics first. Learn about genetics, then learn about migratory patterns, learn a little bit about history, then you could go do your test. Then it might tell you something, or you might read something else into it, like maybe I'm not from this region, but just my people were found in this region. Right. But anyway, I don't want to get off into that. So a lot of times we skip over the genealogy of things, right? And so begot so and so begot so and so, and in due time, so and so begot so and so, right? Because it's kind of like, all right, that's your family tree, and but one of the things that you understand again as original people is that, especially when you're reading Torah, it's about bloodline, and even when there was a judgment that came forth, the judgment came forth because someone had tampered with the bloodline. Said, okay, now we gotta do this over again, because even in the garden, when I did the breakdown on Genesis, you messed up the bloodline. you know so let's get into that for a second, right? So if we look at Genesis 5, we have a record, the record of the generations of Adam, right? And real quickly we go, we have, of course, um he created them male and female, which tells us what? It tells us that we're not talking about one person. We're talking about a conglomerate of people. Them. They're referred to as them. Okay. So this is the book of the generations of Adam. And the day that Elohim created man in the likeness of Elohim made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them and called their name Adom, and the day when they were created. And Adom lived, and I'm going to read all of this because I know y'all like, who cares how long he lived? Just you're going to see why. This isn't like the blockchain thing. This one actually does. This stuff does correlate. All right. And Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness, and after his image, and called his name Seth. Because you might be saying, well, what about Cain and Habel? In his own likeness. And the days of Adom after he begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. Now, I think I've taught that before. Your sons represent your builders, your daughters represent your branches. So whenever you see sons and daughters, and he begot sons, because you would think, why doesn't it just say he begot children? Because when I begot sons and daughters, it means that I begot now my components of a nation. My sons build a nation, my daughters branch the nation out. They expand the nation. Okay. As the multipliers. Because it's always important to understand too, we as original people, in contrast to grafted people, we are multipliers. Whereas grafted people are people of addition. They add on, you know, give me that, give me that, and give me that, and give me a little. So everything for them is about attainment. I'm going to attain that. I'm going to add on that. I'm going to add on that. I'm going to add on that. Sometimes we even get into that mind frame ourselves because we get locked into a Babylonian mindset. You know, I got one girlfriend, but I'm gonna go get two girlfriends. I'm gonna go get three girlfriends. I want 10 children. Why you want 2 children? 10 children? I don't know. I just want. I want more. Bigger and better, more. But that's when you're functioning from an addition mentality as opposed to a multiplication mentality. All right. And again, in all the days that Adon lived were 930 years. Make a note of that. 930 years, and he died. And Seth lived 105 years and begot Enosh. And Seth lived after he begot Enosh 807 years and begot sons and daughters. So we see more nation building happening, right? And all the days of Seth were 912 years. Write that down. So you see the pattern here. I'm telling you, write down the ages. Okay, so and he begot Ken. Well, we say Canaan, but it's really technically it's Kenan. So I'm gonna say it the right way. He begot Kenan, and Enosh lived after he begot Kenan 815 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. And Kenan lived 70 years and begot Mahalalel. And Kenan lived after he begot Mahalalel 840 years and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Kenan were 910 years. And he begot Yared. And Mahalalel lived after he begot Yared, or what some may know as Jared, but Jared is Yared. Yared 830 years and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years. And he died. I'm not holding this down there so I can get it quick in my neck later. And Yared lived 162 years, and he begot Enoch. And Yared lived, after he begot Enoch 800 years and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Yared were 960 and 2 years, and he died. And Enoch lived 60 and 5 years and begot Methuselah. And Enoch walked with Yah, or Elohim rather, in that particular one. And after he begot Methuselah 300 years and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with Elohim, and he was not, for Elohim took him, meaning he didn't die, right? And Methuselah lived 187 years and begot Lamech. And Methuselah lived after he begot Lamech 782 years and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. And Lamech lived 182 years and begot a son, and he called his name Noach, although we usually say Noah, but it's actually Noach. Noach saying, "This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed." And Lamech lived, and he begot Noah 595 years and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech was 777 and 7 years, and he died. And Noach was 500 years old, and Noach begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay. So willfully, you all wrote down the ages, the names. I hope the names and the ages, not just the ages, because then it wouldn't make any sense to you later, right? So in the chat, right? Normally I don't address the chat when I'm doing my Sabbath cipher, but I am this time. Can one of you tell me, or any of you tell me, who lived the longest? Who lived the longest? And while you're putting that in, because I know we always say there's a 20-second delay, but there ain't no 20-second delay. I don't know why y'all say that. It's not a 20-second delay. Just people be slow on the uptake. Huh? What do you say? Huh? That's all. See, look. See how quick y'all putting it in already. Ain't no 20-second delay. People just be slow on the uptake. Huh? That's cool, man. All right, cool. So some of the answers we got. Master Antonio says Enoch. Manera says, Sister Manera, excuse me, no disrespect, my sister, says Enoch. Brother Cruz says Methuselah. Brother Zach says 910. Huh? Sister Deidre says Methuselah. Sham the Joy, she's asking us, she put a question mark, so we're going to ignore hers. Brother Chris says Methuselah. Oh, no, it actually says Methuselah. I'm pretty sure you're saying Methuselah though, but not the other one. Sister D, the StreamYard ain't 27. You know, just take your notes. Sisters always get, no, brother, let me just take your freaking notes. Sister Arlene says Methuselah. Brother Haru says Enoch. Sister Quia says Methuselah. Sovereign Eat says Enoch. Sister Precious says Methuselah. Cruz, right? Thank you. Enoch was taken. He did not die. Brother Logan says Enoch. And Top Tier Speaker says the first person named 930 years. So that means you didn't write down the name. It'll slick so. Sister Quadra says Methuselah 969. Brother Chris said, yeah, I figured it, Brother Chris. I was just making sure you wasn't saying Mahala, because you know the names are similar. Sister Cassie says Methuselah. So it sounds like we have more Methuselahs. We got to toss between Methuselah. Too late, Sham the Joy. You put the question mark on the first one. It's the wrong answer anyway, so you should have just left it where it was at. But the Methuselah is the correct one, 969 years. Pay attention to the numerology and all these things. All of this stuff means something. You know, I'm not gonna go into it because I think that's real like punkish when people do that. But like I was having a discussion with a good brother of mine the other day, and He had just said something in regard. I won't get into it, but sometimes he watches. I don't want you to think, brother, like I'm working out my side of the disagreement online. But he was just saying, like, certain people have proven that black people did not write the Bible. I'll just say that. I won't go into more, right? That has not been proven. I mean, that's when you're coming from, and again, I'm not working out my side of the discussion because I didn't even say this in the discussion. Um, but when you're not studied on these things, it's very easy to slip into fantasy land in order to support your narrative of why things are not working out. And that's why it's important that you study things for yourself, right? Because, for instance, I just taught you about DeFi, right? Now, there's so much more. We didn't even get into tokens. We didn't get into what a ledger is, or there's a lot to get into. But the thing about it is that if I want to sit back and say the truth, that there are certain banking institutions that had a strong hand in the Ma'afa and who subjugated my ancestors and still subjugate my people to this day, predatory lending and, all sorts of unfair practices that they do. And I now have a way to remove them from the picture, then why don't I do that? Right? But that means I have to maybe sit down and learn something. Like I got to really sit down and study this. What is this decentralized finance thing? What is the blockchain? What is a token? What is Bitcoin mining? What is Bitcoin? What is Ethereum? What are all these alt tokens? What do these things mean? I didn't maybe learn about stocks, because I wanted to skip over that, or because the New York Stock Exchange also sold people and I wasn't comfortable with that. So maybe some of this concept of investing is totally new to me, but it does allow me to no longer feed the beast that once subjugated my people, right? But it requires me to get up off my behind and study something. Or, or I could just make up some esoteric stuff as to why I shouldn't deal with that either. Bitcoin, bit. See, that's the problem right there, brother. Bit. You see, they always bite in the things that we do, taking our style, taking our energy, taking our fashion, taking our women, taking a bite out of our women. Why do you think it's called Bitcoin, brother? Think about it. And Ethereum, Ether. Right? Ether will kill you. Why do you think they call it Ethereum, brother? They bringing you into the realm of ether where you can't breathe, brother. Think about it. They always end it with the think about it. Like you think about it. You think about the dumbness that just came out your mouth. I'm not gonna think about that. Crypto, brother, brother. Have you never seen Tales from the Crypt, brother? Crypto will do nothing but bring you into the realm of the Crypt Keeper. You see, and in me, y'all know I'm famous for the. Okay, I hear you. Because I got to protect my energy. Okay. All right. All right. Think about it, brother. So that's the thing. Like, it may require a little bit of work. So it's very easy to jump up and say, oh, they enslaved us with that book. Nobody enslaved you with this book. You're talking about people who couldn't even read. They didn't enslave you with the book. No, they enslaved you through treachery. That's something different. They enslaved you through treachery. And then they gave you interpretations of the understand because their ancestors didn't write it. And you just took the interpretation as you do today. How many people go to, churches and don't even this Bible's like on every seat. Don't even pick the joint up, just move it out the way and then be on their phone the whole time. You see what I'm saying? So it's the same self re-enslavement all over again. So anyway, let's get into these names, right? Like I said, I wasn't going to get into the discussion, but it was just that aspect that I felt was important because it's very easy to say certain things when we feel defeated because we haven't, we don't have the courage to approach certain things because of the triggers that set off. Like if someone told me today, "Oh, you need to go into that Catholic church and go talk to that priest because he's got information on, the true nature of the Catholic religion." I could be like, I'm not going up it because I don't like to go, I'm not a Christian. I don't like go up in them spots. I do like frankincense and myrrh though. So I mean, I might go up just for the smells, you know. But I might feel like, man, I'm not talking to him. Well, But if that realm or that place has information that I may need, and I can get in and out without being corrupted, which is the key, without being corrupted, why would I be scared to do that? See, that's a level of development and growth. But if I'm maintaining a childish narrative about who did what and they, this um all perverse, pervasive they. You know what they? Who's they? Who you talking about? That begins to lord over me. And remember, in the root of they is the means God, you know. So they doing this, they doing that, they doing this, they doing that. You sound like, man, we back with the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki are forcing us to mine for gold. And you just talking about overlords. So they're gonna make us mine over there tomorrow. They're gonna send us to South Africa next week, you know. So yeah. So, like I said, oftentimes, again, Methuselah often was the right answer, if y'all don't remember. But oftentimes we skip over the genealogy, definitely the ages outside, because and plus the ages just sound crazy. 900 years. What? Who the heck? 900 years. You know, but there's a decline of the human genome. That's science, so and also you have to recognize it, just like so many other great and amazing things that happened across the world in ancient times, people had a greater sense of what to do back then. Like, um how often did people eat in this time? Because we don't get a whole bunch of messages about that. Like, how often did they eat? Did they eat 3 times a day? I doubt it. you know I don't even think people ate every day. Right? Now, how much would that change your longevity if you didn't eat every day and weren't constantly forcing your body to go through this process to generate more acid, right? Um, you know, we're talking at a time too where there was little to no radiation on the earth. So how does radiation begin to that whole, well, let's just say the radiation. I don't want to get too gruesome, but how does radiation begin to affect the human lifespan, right? So I just say that just as you're reading, right? Sister Sham says, who said we can't live over 900 years? Well, in fact, science says that we can. Science says that there's no reason that people do not live forever. There's no scientific reason. Yes, there is a reason why we don't, but there's no reason why we can't, based on the way our cells are structured. That's science. That ain't that's. So yeah, who's to say we can't? And then who's to say, what form we live in? You know what I mean? When we get gray, when our hair turns gray, does it mean that we're dead, or is the black hair dead now? Things change forms, and some things they change forms in a way where in that the old one will never come back, but it's just a part of a process. But anyway, let's get to the names. And you remember the phrase that I told you earlier, willfully, um you wrote it down. So we'll get into the first name, Adon, right? And again, from our Genesis teachings, I gave you that one, right? Adon. Red, earth, clay, right? And Adom, Adoma, which would be like, or dome. Adoma would be your red, and dome by itself means blood. Okay, dome is blood. So Adom or Hadom, the blood, right? So you have a concept, and we're just told in the book that that's man, right? That's man. Blood is man, right? So in order to be man, you got to have the blood. So again, you have a very interesting reference there to bloodline, blood. Who's got the blood? Who's got the blood, right? Blood is so very important. And being able to control and understand your bloodline is so very important, because that's what reconnects you back with, you know, um, that Elohim reality. That's one of the cool things too about people in the South. Very much, very, very similar to people on a continent. They're much more in tune with bloodline than we are in the North, because we scatter and disperse so much. Some people from the South, they get of age, they maybe join the military, things like that, but they do whatever they possibly can um, to get away. You know, they do whatever they possibly can to get away and to not be around the family anymore. And then they start to play with the bloodline. Sometimes it's something as simple as just going to school. Like, I'm going to leave where I'm at. I'm going to go here to school. But then sometimes they go there to school. They don't come back home. You know, and there's so many interesting concepts that are wrapped up in that. But anyway, so Adom, right? And then when Adom was able to reclaim his bloodline, he had Seth. Now Seth, and if you remember, Adom lived how long? 930 years. How long did Seth live? 912 years, right? Um, Seth means appointed. So you have Adom, which is earth or earthman, or man. And then you have his son Seth, which is appointed. Seth brought forth Enosh. And the reason why I have to pronounce it that way, because sometimes people think Enosh and Enoch are the same, but they're not. Um, Remember that when you're dealing with Hebrew, that there are three-letter roots that sit at the core of every word. They can all be broken down into three letters, right? So that's why it's important when you're interpreting the language that you try to break it down to its roots, because then you can see which other words are connected to that particular word, right? But Enosh comes from Anash. Anash. Anash is a word that we use, or that is used, because I don't go around saying it. It's a word that's used when someone is wounded. So, like, it's another word for womb, for not womb, excuse me, for wound, right? Or basically, it means like something like a wound, but or something that cannot be cured. Like if you have a wound that cannot be cured, it's Anash, right? So Enosh had that name. That's kind of a crazy name too. Think about it for a child, But you know, how do you say that lovingly? But so the concept there is mortal or mortality, right? So Enosh represents mortality just based on name, meaning wound, something that cannot be cured, or kind of like the ending of life forever, if you will. Then you have Kenan, which so many will call you. Yeah, I will call you. Imagine in Roots raising that baby up to the moon. Behold, incurable womb. The only thing greater than yourself. But then you have Kenan, which again many people say Canaan, right? Um, but Kenan is the idea there of really it's the dirge. Again, another like depressing name, but more importantly, sorrow, right? So we have Kenan or Canaan, as some of you may be familiar, but Kenan, it means the dirge or sorrow, but it also means to be fixed, right? Or it means the place in where you dwell, right? But that place in where you dwell, it's a fixed, like you can't move, right? Now that's very important when you even think about the name Cain or Cain, which means to possess or the possessor, right? A lot of times things that we strive to possess and that we become so attached to, so selfish about, are the only things that we'll ever have. You know, I've known I've known elders like that as a youth. Like, don't touch my car. Stay away from my car. Like they would go crazy over their cars, right? Just man, like I just be like, it's just glass and metal. Like me, I used to let everybody drive my car. Oh, you did. But one thing, I always drove stick shifts. And that was my own little subtle selfishness, because it was like everybody can't drive stick. Say, hey, let me borrow your car. You drive stick? Nah, the bus, go on the bus pole. The schedule's on the pole. So the thing about it is that some of those same elders, I saw them, and I'm saying they were elders. Maybe when I was young, they were in their 40s, right? But I saw them maybe late 50s, 60s, still got the same whip. I mean, still have the same car. The things that they're holding on to, they hold on to, and they never can grow beyond that. And that brings sorrow. So attachment brings sorrow in that sense, but it also brings a fixed dwelling. I'm stuck here. Sometimes we get that way even with where we live. Oh, the town gonna come back. It's gonna come back. Business gonna come back. And we're holding on to a concept or an idea, and it creates that sorrow because of fixation. All right. Then we have Mahala'el. So Mahala'el was like I was like the redemption. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, man, we got all these messed up names. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are all these messed up names. So Mahala El means to praise El. So Mahal or Mahal means to praise, and El, of course, we know is the Most High, right? So Mahala El is like, all right, we gotta fix this. You know what I mean? Because you remember we're speaking about patriarchs who begot sons and daughters, and it's so important that again, I know I said it earlier, but again, if you don't know how to read the book, right? So there are people who will read that book and say, "Well, that's a patriarchal book." Yeah, so what's the problem? If it was a matriarchal book, would that be better for you? you know, but people think that the woman is excluded because they don't know how to read or they don't read it. They hear one person say that and then they say, "Yeah, that's right. That's right." Have you ever read it? Yeah, I read it. I read it. You didn't read it. You didn't read it. You know what I mean? And then beyond reading, did you break it down? Do you realize that some of the words that you're taught are transliterated words? They're not actually translated words. So do you really know what you read when you read? Like when it says created Adam, male, female, created them, did you realize that they were created at the same time? Did you catch that part? You know what I mean? Or understand that Elohim, which is plural, so it's not just talking about one person up in the cloud somewhere. Like, you ain't read it, man. You know, the time for stupidity is done. I'm telling you, man, this time is done for stupidity. We a lot of times we battle against a lot of low IQ sort of thoughts and reason. And people with low IQs, they get emotional when you start speaking to them. Oftentimes they get offended. I've had so many times where people have tried to talk to me about something, and I say, "Okay, I'll listen." You know, I listen. Excuse, I know you'll probably hear that buzzing. Excuse me. I listen, and then I'll say, "Okay," and then maybe I'll start breaking something down. Okay, well, let's look at it like this. They'll get offended, or they'll take your ability to respond calmly and break things down as like they'll try to ascribe an emotion to it. Oh, I wasn't saying all of that. I didn't mean all that. All of what? This is complicated. This is like intense to you. So that age is done. And when I mean that age is done, you got to learn to harmonize. We're coming into a 6 year in a Gregorian. Six is dealing with family, is dealing with harmony. And most importantly, is dealing with harmonizing with those who harmonize with you, right? If they don't harmonize with you, then what is it to really talk about? Because now you're just going around creating more discord, you see. So we're coming into a space now where you have to be able to look around you and look at the people around you and the experiences around you, even down to where you work. So that's why they're calling it the great resignation. A lot of people are not going back to work because they recognize this isn't me. It doesn't harmonize with me, man. I'd rather take this little bit of leftover money that I got from the relief funds or whatever, go move back in with my family or learn how to do some crypto trading or some stock trading and reduce my expenses and just figure out something else to do with my life, right? Because this experience does not harmonize with where we're going as a higher collective anymore. The whole sitting in traffic every day, sipping my coffee, listening to news radio, and sloshing into a space and what. It's just not for me, right? So anyway, so we have praise the Most High or praise El with Mahala El. And then we have Yared, or as you'll read, Jared. But Jared, remember there's no J's in the language, it's Yah, Yared. The J's are always the sneaky hidden thing, because when you see all the Yahs in there, you're like, oh, wait, something being said here, but you don't get it when you have all the J's there. Yah shall come down. Yared. Yared means to come down. Yah shall come down. And even that is interesting one, right? Because a lot of times when that's transliterated, it just says it means to come down. Because if you call it Jared, oh, come down. Easy. Right? Until you say, no, wait a minute, there wasn't a J there, there was a Y there. Or the sound or yud, right? That yud, you that which it means the hand, the small symbol, which means the hand of Yah. That's what would have been there. So it's not saying just to come down, it's saying the hand of Yah comes down. Well, that changes the whole meaning, right? So then we have Yared, who lived 962 years, right? Then we have Enoch, Enoch, right? Different than Enosh, of course. And Enoch, Enoch means to teach. Real simple. Enoch, or I should say, um, can mean in English to teach, because none of these things mean that or mean that, but it can mean that to teach. Enoch, right? And then we have, which was the people's choice, Methuselah, who lived what, 969 years. Anybody pay attention to those numbers? I hope you paid attention to those numbers, all divisible, divisibles of three. But Methuselah, again, we get back to some of the dark names. Muth, which sometimes is Mut. You should know who Mut is for those of you who are versed in your Kemetic studies. But Muth or Mut means death. Okay, that's death. Mut. And in modern uh, pronunciations, oftentimes it's Met, right? Met, which means death. Facebook. Screw it, I said it. They're changing their name to Meta. You know that, right? You guys knew that. You better have known that. If you're keeping up with what you need to be investing in, you've been keeping up with your investments and all the changes in the world, then you would know that they're changing it to Meta, death, right? But it doesn't just have to mean death. So just, don't look at it that way. It's because death is transformation, but death is also moving into the unseen. Okay, like metaphysics, the unseen physical, metacognition, the cognition that sits above the conscious cognition. So don't just look at it like, don't go into the conspiracy thing. It's like, yes, nah, you know. Um, Meta makes sense as far as a company name for what they're getting ready to do. That completely makes sense. But you might want to think about, so wait, is it really like we about to be in the Matrix? Like for real, for real, for real, the Matrix? That's where your mind, your mind should be going. Um, oh, and Shalah, his name, his full name, or Shalach, means to bring forth. So it also means the spare. So the whole concept there is again muta, death, shalach, bring forth death, to bring forth death. And that spare concept there also is an idea. So Methuselah also means the man of the spare. And what is it? And spare, SPEAR, spare, bringing that death, if you will, right? And then we have Lamech. Lamech is a tricky word because it's difficult to break down into our three-letter form, right? But we know it pretty much means sorrow. It survived in the word lament or lamentation, to despair, right? Or to have sorrow again, but to have that level of despair. And then Lamech, of course, brings forth Noah, or what we say Noah. But Noah actually comes from Nachem, and Nachem means quiet, right? Or to rest. So that's why they talked about Noah or Noach being that that person of rest, or that time of rest, or that time of comfort. They also call it comforter, right? So now let's get into something real quick, right? And I know you hear me saying like the words, I'm going through it quickly, but also keep in mind that we're talking about formulas. This is like why when people say like, "Oh, we didn't write that book," we had to have written this book because There's a level of divine wisdom that's in the book, from the numerology to the word sounds to the story. It's like other people on the planet do not think like this. Like, you could just look at their history. So if you go to um shoot, any part of the continent, right? And you just look at the historical stories, you look at the way that the people get down, the way that people eat, the way that people marry. Why does it mirror, if you know how to break this down and read it right, why does it mirror the same kind of culture? Because some of those things are held on today. The wearing of headbands is Hebrew culture. Foot bangles. A lot of times, women, especially original women, they love all them damn bangles on their wrists, man. And it's not just because they initiated to Oshun or Yemonja. They just like all that clink, 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 clink whenever they walking around. And sometimes it could get a little distracting when when you're being intimate. you know it's like, damn, I'm laying in the bed with a damn wind chime. But you know original women like that. It's soothing. It sounds like water, like the tinkling of water and all of that. You know what I mean? you know but anyway, so the thing about it is, y'all be laughing at the wrong stuff. That's how y'all know y'all need to like pray more. Central metronome. All right. So yeah, we go back to the concept of the three letters, right? And that being our breakdown. But again, this is why I say that there's so much intricate interweaving math and numbers and symbology, even within the letters of things and the words. That this is something that our ancestors developed. I mean, come on, oh, Shakespeare wrote the Bible. Well, that's kind of dumb. If you understand history, if you could break it down. No, these stories and these experiences and these occurrences existed before Shakespeare. And as much as I love Shakespearean work, I've been reading it since I was started reading. Wasn't that smart. He wasn't that smart. Come on, man. He was a good writer, you know. Um, so for instance, it's and I'm bringing this up. I was with a good brother of mine the other day, and he introduced me to his children. I've known them for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, something like that, right? And we've linked up before, and then mainly we just talk via WhatsApp and stuff like that, right? Um, so for the first time we got the link, and I was near his place, and he was like, "Oh man, let me introduce you to my children and my woman, because I had never met them physically, right?" So he and I have never spoken about our spiritual stance, really. We connect on a different kind of vibe, right? So his I think I don't remember, because they were he's got a lot of children. They were loud. I don't know who said it first, but all I heard was Abba, 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 right? Because we were coming up his walkway, and I said, "Oh," to myself. I made a note like, "Oh, okay," putting things there like, he probably is Hebrew. I never even asked, but he probably is. And then I'm seeing how the daughters are dressed, and how the sons are greeting. I'm like, yeah, okay, Hebrew. But Abba, right? So let's look at it for a second. Abba, it starts with the letter Aleph, right? Aleph, and we went over some of this when I did the Genesis breakdown, so you could always go back and get some of that, the actual lettering, right? But first, it's the first letter. It represents the first. It represents the leader, Aleph, where you later get Alpha, right? And then you have Be, which is literally the second letter, or Bes, or Bet, or Beth, all pronounced similar. All different pronunciations mean the same thing, right? But it means house. So Ab. So as soon as you hear Ab, like Abram or Abraham or Ab or Abba, Ab is father, right? So why would Ab be father? Because the leader of the house is the father. Simple, right? Something as simple as that. You look at it and you say, okay, the letters, so the letters actually add up to a formula. It's not just that ob, it's like someone just came up with that. So I will call that father because it's not the coolest sounding thing, you know what I mean? But now let's take it to another one, right? Use the same example. If we if we have Aleph or Ah, or yeah, Aleph representing again the leader or even the head, but more so the spiritual head. It's not like Resh or Rosh. Rosh, where you would associate with your R, is head, but it represents generational head or family head. It's a little bit different, right? Um, Whereas Aleph represents the spiritual head or the Godhead. So if we have Ab, you know, and then we take a He and put in between the Aleph and the Bet. So we have Aleph, He, Bet, Ahab, Ahab, well, Ahab is another word, or Ahav, the B and V are interchangeable for love, Ahav, or sometimes you hear Ahava or Ahav, you know, or Havot, depending on if it's plural and what you're talking about, or Lehevot, or Lehava, meaning two. When you have that lay, it means two. So to love, you know, Ani Lehot, um, min, I love water, right? But anyway, so the how does that become love? That don't make no sense. Everybody knows it's all about mama love, right? Maybe not. Aleph, Godhead. He, spirit. Bet, house, right? Because he means breath or breath, or he means spirit. He, spirit, breath, right? So the spirit of the Father in the house, Father's spirit in the house. Which Father? Divine Father. Divine Father's spirit enters the house. This is what love is. So when we ask questions, even like, well, what is love? Like, what is it? Well, we can break it down. Just see, that's the genius and the brilliance of the actual language. We didn't even get into the numbers because each letter has a numerical value. So I wanted to just have you, have your mind thinking that way as we're looking at these different names and you're hearing me say, well, this one breaks down to that one breaks down to that, you know, we can itemize all the way down to the letter. And if you can understand the letters, you can understand the language. It's not like English where it's all phonetic, right? So if I understand the letter P, it doesn't tell me really much of anything, right? So if somebody says pot, okay, P, what is a P? What is a O? What is a T? How do I get something that I cook out of with that? Or how do I get something that I turn, on a circuit board in order to turn something up or down? How do I get that? And then we have other names that we use pot for and stuff like that. So it's just all phonetics at that point, as opposed to when you're reading your Hebrew or your Aramaic, it goes beyond the phonetics, and now you have a language that's based around concept. So just like with these different names that we're decoding, the letters within the name express their own concept, and then you can break them down in different ways, right? So let's go to something real quick for a second, and I want to hit our oldest person. Why was Methuselah the oldest? Why was Methuselah the oldest? I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to wait for the 20-second delay. Ain't no damn 20 seconds. But feel free to put it in the chat if you want. Y'all can, discuss it amongst yourselves if you want. So there was a prophecy that was presented, right? And one of the things that was said, most importantly, I would say to Enoch was that no, actually, let me should I share that first? Yeah, I'll share that. To Enoch is that there was, see, the first thing I want you to understand is that when we talk about these flood stories, of course, we have Manu, we have Noach, we have so many other marine different heroes of a flood. So And this is another thing sometimes people use and it'd be like, well, those stories existed before the Bible. Yeah, of course they did. And before Wallace E. Budge translated a lot of the hieroglyphs, they existed before his books too. But most of you Egyptologists and Kemites, that's actually where you get your information from is Wallace E. Budge. Because 90% of y'all never even been to Kemet. I mean, I don't want to get off into that, but yeah. You know what I mean? Um, so, I mean, I know for me as a youth, most of my comedic information came from freaking Smithsonian books. Like that when they did that King Tut exhibit, it was like, oh my goodness, right? You know, you get it where you get it. And then if you have true illumination within inside of you, if you're reflecting the wisdom of Yah, you see it as soon as you get it. You know what I mean? The wise, like I said, the wise only need a hint. Everybody else, you gotta, well, break this down and break that down, break that down. I still don't believe you because you know what? It's not in you. That's why you can't see it. It's not for you. You can't see it. That's all. You can't hear the downbeat. You listen to the music, but you don't know where to put your foot down on because it wasn't really made for you. You know. So let's see. I'm gonna look at some of these answers. Sovereignty says he represents death. Zach says death would be transformation. I'm not even reading that because a question mark on the end of it. That's not even a statement. Christopher Magneto says death and transform are equal to each other and they take time to gestate. Okay, that Emmanuel says he marked the period that death was set upon humans. Methuselah seals means pray, or so it is. Methuselah. No, Selah. Yeah, but Selah, no, it's transliterated as so it is, but Selah means to bring forth. So you could say like so it is, bring forth. Like if I ask for something, then I say Selah. That's like, make it happen. So that's why we would seal, our invocations and our prayers with that. Top tier says there's no time in the unseen. I don't know what you're talking about. Zach Lammer says into intro to chief speech in order for the new to come through the old must rot. Rebirth, it took many years to get back to harmonizing with the most high. Sham the Joy's got the closest one. Okay. Cruz says he came out of the house. Did he delete it? Oh, he deleted it. Come on, man. Say it with your chest. Over there deleting stuff. All right, so I'm gonna go with Sham the Joy, and we're gonna build off of that because that was the closest answer. There was a prophecy that said that. So when we talk about again the flood, we speak about it like it was some surprise to the people. It wasn't, even though we know that Noah had been teaching for 200 years. The people already knew that destruction was on its way. There was a prophecy that was given, and it was told to Enoch that the judgment would not come until your seed died. Right? So that's why Methuselah was named Methuselah, right? Bringing forth death, meaning that when this one dies, destruction is coming. It's going to be a problem. So if Methuselah lived 969 years, that meant 969 years prior to, they already knew that a judgment was coming. Now, why is this important, man? Because a lot of times we're trying to explain things like I'm saying, this is not the time for low IQ anymore. We're saying things and we're saying things and we're saying things, and people don't realize that that's mercy and grace that's being showed. It's not that we're interested in necessarily just debating ideas with you. Like for instance, and I'm not going to get into it in case you're watching, brother. There was something that somebody was presenting, and the brother had shared it with me, and I said, "No, I don't watch them." And then he was like, "Why not?" Because and I said, "Nah." I pointed out a couple of things. I was like, "Yo, the person's information is off. I'm, not interested." And then the brother was like, "Well, I'm sure you could set up a debate with him. He would debate with you." Why would I debate? Who got time to be doing that? And so if something is blatantly wrong, and it's blatantly wrong because I actually study stuff, why would I waste my time with debating someone who, in my estimation is a 10 percenter. I don't sit down at the table with a snake and try to figure something out. People always, they take that self-righteous approach when they see a disagreement between people. Oh, y'all need to come to the table and work out. No, we don't. You can't work anything out with someone who lacks integrity. So no, you don't. You separate. You don't have to work on it now. It's just that it's a very easy self-righteous answer. I've seen that even a lot of times when I've done therapy with couples, and they've told us like, well, they said we need to get together and talk. Maybe you don't. Nah, maybe something has happened is so egregious that there's nothing to sit here and work out. This person has shown you that their nature is foul. So working things out is just giving them an opportunity to con you again. That's working things out. No. And if you about your father's work, you really don't have time for that. So anyway, so train of thought, I don't know. Because I'm trying not to say too much of what he and I were talking about out of respect for him. So I'm all over. But anyway, the point is that we're being given so many hints and clues and messages, and we're ignoring them because we're locked into maybe intellectual meandering. And sometimes that intellectual meandering is not even all that intellectual. Like I look at a lot of people in the conscious community, I'm like, they're not even that smart. I'm hearing the things that they're talking about. I'm like, yeah, I can tell you never studied that. Some of them will talk about Orishas, mispronounce the name. Like you couldn't have studied it if you don't even know how to pronounce the name. Or they like to throw around words like DNA. Yeah, because you know your DNA. Do you even know what it is? Do you know the proteins that make up DNA? Like, do you know anything about it? Like, have you ever looked at a microscope? Like, I mean, not even anything under the mic. Like, have you ever seen a microscope? Have you touched one? Have you ever used a centrifuge? Like, do you know anything about this? Um, do you know the enzymes that hold DNA strands together? Do you know that DNA is in strands? Like, you know what I mean? So, but sometimes we are so easily influenced by celebrity, which is a part of the new fallen angel concept, you know. So we get influenced by that, and then we listen to that more than we actually listen to the truth. We're listening for popularity. Oh, well, this one's cool. I like this one, and they said this and they said that, and you know, um, that's how we're misused and abused, right? So with that, 969 years, they already knew something was going to happen. So why did he live the longest? And I said it was closest to Sham to Joyce. She said it took that many years to get back to harmonizing with the Most High. Well, yes and no, because keep in mind that it was Noah and his crew that got saved. So it was 969 years where it was like, yo, we know something's coming. Maybe we should harmonize. Maybe we should, because basically what was happening is that let's just call it genetic experiments. They were mixing bloodlines that had no business being mixed together, right? So you have all of these generations now to clean up your bloodline. But no, you still want to play around. Let's put the hawk with the human. Let's put the dog with the human. Let's put the angel in it. And then we make this, let's make some giants. Let's do all of these different experiments, even though he said seed after his own kind, in his own likeness. So clearly there's a line of that we're supposed to follow of purity. Let's ignore that and just do a bunch of experiments, right? So you got 969 years to get that right. Methuselah dies in the same year that Methuselah dies. What happens? The flood comes. The same year he dies, right? Because it was prophesied. So I want to point that out, man. That it wasn't just the 200 years that Noah was talking, it was almost 1,000 years. And the reason I'm kind of saying that is because some of you have been talking for a long time, and you're like, man, people just don't get it. People ain't getting it. And if you know that something is coming, for instance, how long ago did I tell you all about how to build your own solar generators? Thunderground Thursday, right? How many years ago was that? How long ago did I tell you need to get land? How long ago did I tell you need to start stocking up on hard commodities? right? And things like that. How long ago have I said, yo, it's coming? It was certainly before 2020. And in 2019, what did I say about the beginning of 2020? You go back and look at the records. I said, yo, the first quarter of 2020, all kind of hell is about to break loose. That's what I said. The first quarter of 2020. I said that back early 2019. First quarter 2020. Not the mid, not the third quarter, not the fourth. First quarter. So what am I talking about? That winter time, between the winter and the spring. What happened early 2020? We know. Right, 6 years ago, maybe more. Right. Some of y'all are remembering 6 years ago. So when stuff happens, sometimes we act like, yo, what happened? I can't believe this. Yo, you see what they doing? See what they doing? But if you were about the divine agenda, it wouldn't even matter what they doing. You know. Now, this is going to be the new mark. This is going to be the new mark. At some point, you might hear someone say, when did Chief first tell us about decentralized financing? Because damn, if I wouldn't have had all my money in the bank, if I wouldn't have had all my insurance policy, if I would have put my insurance policy on the blockchain, oh man, the rate of inflation skyrocketed, and I had all my money sitting in the bank, and now it ain't worth nothing. It's like Argentina, we burn this joint in the street. If I would have put my finances, my funds on the blockchain, if I would have got some gold, like he said, if I would have got some water, hard commodities, like he said, if I would have got some land, like he said, this would not have happened. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. This will be the other benchmark. So one day he's gonna say, when did he tell us about decentralized finance? You know I'm bad with dates. What's today's date? I think it's the 6th. Yep. Oh, because I always get the date wrong. I'm on it today. I'm on fire. So November 6th, 2021, he talked about decentralized finances. Though he had been telling us a while ago, but he actually gave us an introduction to what the blockchain is. Then what's gonna happen? You're gonna put your ATM card. This machine currently isn't working. Check back, please. We'll be back up shortly. You're gonna go to the next one. That one ain't working. That one ain't working. Damn. You're gonna go to the bank door, it's chains on the door. What the heck? Hey, open the door. My money's in there. No, it ain't. Your money was never in there. They just have high ceilings in there to make it seem like it's this big imposing place, but there's nothing in there. The vault is empty, you know. But or you could decentralize your finances and then not have all your eggs in one basket. And if one thing crashed, you can say, okay, well that crashed, but I'm good over here, or I'm good over here. Or you know what? The Our New Way does say that we should not purchase anything that we cannot pay for within 12 months. That is what the Our New Way says. But heck, man, I want to buy a house that's $437,000. How am gonna pay that in 1 year? Well, I guess that's a house you can't afford. I guess you can't afford a $437,000 house, huh? If you can't pay for it in 1 year. Maybe you need to be looking for that $40,000 fixer upper that the base head snatched all the copper pipes out of. Because you can probably pay for that in 1 year and then get your copper pipes the next year. Maybe that's what you can afford. Maybe you need to get yourself a little $5,000 land tract and get one of those 20,000 or $15,000 houses that they're now selling out of Lowe's and HUD and not Lowe's and Home Depot, or you can have your own house put together. Those little small studio houses. It's like a studio apartment, but it's a house. Maybe that's what you can afford because people are too focused on payments. That's how they get you. Slavery. I can afford that slavery. How much is the payments? 800 a month. I got 800 a month. How long I gotta pay it? 20 years? I'll be alive in 20 years. It's only 800 a month, right? That's how they get you. But anyway, Methuselah. So there was a time that was given in order for people to get their act together, right? And most did not. Of course, Enoch was lucky because Enoch was what? Raptured. That was Methuselah's pops. And we're using the word rapture, but that's not really a real thing. But just for the sake of what we're talking about. Yes, there's no such thing as the rapture. You stop watching the movies. It was Kirk Cameron, the day after. You know, they give you this. That's the Christians giving you this image of there's no such thing. But anyway, but he was taken up with the Elohim. You see, left behind, right? Yeah, left behind. Um, I'm sorry, it's just funny. It's like that's not how it went, or how it's gonna go. Kirk. Kirk comes from the show Growing Pains. His best friend's name was Boner. So anyway, let's go back to there's an '80s show. So uh but anyway, um so Methuselah had y'all laughing, that was his name. Look it up. It's on, I'm sure it's on Wikipedia or something. That's his best name. I don't know what the writers was thinking. And he'd always do something stupid. He'd be like, Boner. Well, anyway, um, so we get into this concept going from Adam to Noah. Now, the truth is, from Adam always going up to from from Adam going all the way up to Yahushai, we have 80 patriarchs. That's actually what I was going to do today. I was going to teach you every single name, the 80 names leading up to it. But I decided not to because you won't remember all of that. We can maybe do them maybe in sections by 10. But I figured I wanted to just introduce the idea of the fact that the names do mean something. They do tell a story. Now, remember the phrase that I gave you in the very beginning to write a note on? Remember the phrase in the very beginning? I told you, Chef says Chief tells us not to laugh and leaves us all this bait. Yeah, man, you gotta learn how to poker face. See how quick it is. This is how I get my family a lot with all the pranks because I can bring it right. It doesn't matter what's going on. You see, Baba, for real? That really happened? Yeah, that happened, man. Why would I lie to you? And you know what's so crazy? After all these years, my children they still fall for every prank. I don't know if I'm just that good or if they're just that. You know, sometimes you get a dud. That's just what happens. So I don't know if I got a bunch of duds or if I'm just that good. You know, they won't feel hurt if they hear this. Don't worry about it. I tell them that all the time. I don't know how. You know, I keep it real. So anyway, you remember what I told you? All the names add up to that phrase. There you go. So I'm gonna read what Sister Kashia wrote. Man is appointed moral sorrow, but that blessed Elohim will come down and comfort the despaired. So that's a formula that was given in the names of the patriarchs. So now, why is that important? And if we go all the way up to 80, the formula keeps going, but it cycles in tens, I noticed. That's why I gave you the first 10. Because if we look at man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed Elohim will come down, teaching, and his death shall bring the despairing comfort. So for those of you coming in late, you might be like, what the heck are they talking about? So I'll give you the names again. Adom, man, Seth, appointed. Enosh, mortal. Kenan or Canaan, sorrow. Mahalael, praise the Most High. Yared, Yah shall come down, or Yah comes down. Enoch, to teach. Methuselah, death comes forth, or sorrow comes forth. Lamech, to despair. Noah, rest or comfort, right? So we put all of those names together, right? Breaking them down, we get man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed Elohim comes down teaching his death shall bring the despairing comfort. So what is that foreshadowing of? Yahweh Shai. That's a foreshadowing of the Christ, right? But now, what's most important about understanding that, how that's a foreshadowing, it's not just saying, you know, Jesus will come and make everything all right. No, it's not saying that, right? We'll go back to it again. Adon, man is appointed mortality or mortal sorrow or the sorrow of mortality. So that means man is appointed. That means that your suffering is predetermined, right? And why are you suffering? Because there's a sorrow of mortality. This thing is going to end, right? So that means that that would not necessarily be the norm. The ending is not the norm because man, as opposed to Elohim, man is given mortality. No, you are going to end. Now, we might say, but how could that be the code? Because we read about them being in the garden and they ate some fruit and they screwed up. And as a result of them, messed up. And as a result of them messing up, they now they don't get access to the tree of life, which would now allow them to live forever, so forth and so on. So how could these be those names if that story happened then? As you've heard me say many times, there's no sense of time in the spiritual realm. So when we say, so then he knew, or they knew, that they were going to eat of that fruit. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You see it right in the names of the people. Man is appointed moral. Man is appointed moral sorrow. Mahalael, the blessed Yah shall come down. The blessed Yah shall come down and teach. So the blessed Yah shall come down and teach. We're taught this all before the birth of Noah. So yes, is it a foreshadowing of Yahweh? Yes, but were we taught before Yahweh? Yeah. Who or what is the blessed man? Well, so much of this represents thought. So, like I've taught you before, going onto the mountaintop, when we talk about the Sermon on the Mount, we're not necessarily just talking about climbing a physical mountain. We're talking about being above mundane thought. So, if everyone around me is on some, I don't know, secular information, social media, low vibrational stuff, and I say, you know what, I want to get on a higher level. I want to talk about something more important than that, right? Because everyone around me is my thoughts. If my whole crew is example, I had a woman recently, she got into a situation, long story situation, she needed a lawyer for her mother. Her mother fell. She's an elderly person. And she was like, you know what? She said, I came up to a realization. She said, I was calling all my friends, asking if anybody knows an injury lawyer, and not no, one person knew an injury lawyer. Now, this woman's like in her early 60s. She was like, not one person knew an injury lawyer. And she said, I realized I need some new friends. And I was like, that's good that you caught that now. She was like, yeah, not one person out of all of my friends could come up with one good injury lawyer you know so now what are our friends? Our friends are our thoughts, right? So it's easy to sit back and say, well, this one ain't about that, this one ain't about that, but that's us commenting and criticizing our own internal mental environment, our own thoughts. So when we have the Sermon on the Mount, or when we go to the mountaintop to preach, we're standing above all our lower thoughts and saying, you need to be doing this, you need to stop, you get out, you know better, right? That's essentially what we're doing, right? When we're preaching, when we're having that sermon that goes higher up on the mountain. So the concept even here is the same, where the blessed Yared shall come down and teach. Enoch is the teaching, right? So it's speaking about the higher self, or the Godhead, now coming down where? Coming down to earth. What is earth? Earth is the body. And now teaching or reforming the body. And his death shall bring the despairing comfort, right? Well, whose death? The death of the body. when you can now move beyond the hankerings and the pleas and the pining of the body, and you're speaking to it with the higher self, because Yared or Jared, See, all of these names, this is all you. These are just different parts of you, right? Am I saying the story didn't happen? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that the Elohim are so brilliant that they can write a story. They can write a story, think a story, and make a story, right? So, like, art is imitating life, life is imitating art. So, I'm not saying these things didn't happen, but I'm saying these things are happening. And then I'm also saying that these things are gonna happen because the Most High is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. What does that mean? When you say the Most High is today, yesterday, saying it means that the Most High has no concept of time. So everything that's happening yesterday is happening today, and everything that's happening forever is happening yesterday, and everything that's happening today is happening yesterday and forever. The same today, yesterday, today, and forevermore. Right? So the concept of man being appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed Elohim coming down teaching, and his death shall bring despairing comfort. It's a sacrifice of the physical body, but it's also a sacrifice of an Elohim, right? Because in order for an Elohim to come down, or let's look at it like this: in Elohim, just understand that that's not one particular thing. Like people will say, "Oh, the Elohim, the Anunnaki, or the Elohim are the gods." The Elohim could be angels. The Elohim are those who exist above the stars. Like you ever watch that movie Aliens and Cowboys, right? Um, it was about the Anunnaki, right? But there was one character and there was a female. I can't remember her name because they just kept calling her the whore. Um, But when the character, can't remember his name either, James Bond, asked her, like, "Where do you come from?" And she said, or where do they come from? And she was like, "Above the stars." So notice she didn't say, for those of you who saw it or are gonna go see it, she didn't say, "I'm from the stars," like we usually hear with like ET, not planet there, above the stars. Well, that takes you back to the Genesis breakdown I gave you, right? Where there were lights put into the firmament, and the firmament is what separated the earth from the actual heaven. So the heaven is what would be above the stars or above the lights, right? So it's that concept of that, right? So in order for you, let's take you, in order for you to come down from your mount and to come down and have and teach someone who is totally enraptured and infested with their own demons, there's a part of you that has to die, that has to sacrifice to be transformed to have that. Like in the movie Aliens and Cowboys, she was like, "I took on this form so that I can interact with you." Well, taking on this form kills a part of me. You see, it's just like if I'm speaking, I could be speaking to some 14, 15-year-old gangbanger. Dude is just completely lost in his thoughts, right? And I might even have to muscle him a little bit. And I've been through this, go through it periodic to let him know, like, I got hands, like you up, you know. So now me having to do that now kills a part because I got to step outside of my temple just a little bit, right? I got to step outside of my temple in order to teach him. So there's a part of me that may die, and even trying to struggle to get him back to the temple. Come back over here with me. Yeah, you try. I'm carrying you like a sack of potatoes, right? So there's a part of me that dies in that sense, right? So I don't want you just look at it as like, oh, a Messiah comes and teaches me, and then the Messiah dies, and then now I'm comforted. No, it's an ongoing story, but it's also the higher part of you descending. The higher part of you that usually that Enoch aspect of you that's typically caught up, right? That comes down and says, all right, come on, look. Let's do this right. But then a part of that dies. You spend enough time, and for anybody who works with people or teaches people, I can tell you, from my own personal experience, there's what we call burnout, right? For those of you who counsel people, do readings, things like that, you know, there comes a point where it's like, all right, I can't handle anybody else's problems because you start to. I find that certain clients I would talk to, as soon as I start talking to them, I start cursing or using profanity, rather is a better way to say it. And I don't really, at least around non-family members, and most my relatives have never really heard me curse. So really, I only it's bad, but I mainly only curse around my children. My children and my women, they know, oh yeah, he curses like a sailor. But everyone else, like, no, he's so articulate, he's so well spoken. But I have certain clients that as soon as I'm talking to them, it's like flip a flapping, flarf, flil, farn, flarf, flil, farn, flarf, flil, farn. You know, like it just boom. Because in order to communicate with them, their vibration may be so low and so slow that I have to kill so much of my divine self just to exchange. You see, so that is a sacrifice of the Elohim. You see what I'm saying? That's a sacrifice within itself. So the name codes are right there in front of you, right? And again, like I said, we didn't even get into the actual breaking down of things like what do these particular letters mean? Why would Methuselah be the man of the spear, for instance? But most importantly, what you find is that again with Methuselah, who lived longer than everybody, his father and his own child, is that there is a long time that's given for grace where we can get it together, but then there's an understanding that it's finite. There is a point where it's like enough. 969. All right, I've given you almost 1,000 years, and you still over here laying down with goats and doing this and mixing. I told you be separate, but you want to go over here and you wearing mix match this and that and that. Okay, I gotta wipe it clean. Sometimes in our arrogance, especially as self-proclaimed original people, we think that that's all we have to have in order to be right. you know you have certain groups like that. Well, I'm this, I was born that, so I'm done. No, there's work that has to go into you continuing to teach yourself, teach your lower thoughts, teach your body. If anyone has ever worked out, sometimes when you're working out, there's that point, or not even a point, before you, some days you get up, it's raining, it's cold, you're like, man, I don't feel like it today. I'm just not in the mood. Maybe you're not feeling very well or whatever. You're just not in the mood, and you have to. There's a voice that comes from on high, if you will, that tells you, get up, come on, let's go, let's go, come on. I was talking to two of my really close brothers the other day, and we were talking about, because we all used to bodybuild together back in the days, and you know we're all not in shape now. So I was like, yo, I was coming up with this plan. I was like, yo, this is what we should do. Like, boom, 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 boom. It's how we're gonna hold each other accountable. And one of my brothers was like, he was sending us pictures of like, I'm just gonna keep it because I was like, man, don't send me this. It was these pictures of LL Cool J. He was like, yo, you remember when you still like, because people used whatever, and I won't get into that. He's like, remember you used to look like this, you? He was like, yo, that's what you need to aim for. I was like, I can't look like that again. I was like 21 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, I'm not trying to look like that. I'm just trying to be able to like not hurt myself reaching to the back of the damn refrigerator. Like, that's all I want. I'm not trying to all cut up to, nah, I'm good. So then he was like, my other brother, he was quiet the whole time. I'm like, yo, what's up? What you doing? Like, you working or something? And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I was like, you ain't gonna do nothing, man. I could tell just by the way you're talking. And these are brothers who are well respected in their various communities and stuff. So then at one point I was like, look, you two, I said, you two mother effing fat boys could do whatever the heck you want, man. Take your fat ass. And I just started calling them all kind of different fats and this and that, that. You know what I'm saying? Now, that was the voice from on high. for our crew, right? Because I can speak to them in a way. So I stepped outside of the we yo, remember when like, well, I'm not doing no reminiscing with you. You know what I mean? Remember when we just forget that. And the voice, the Elohim comes down and says, hey, you two fat boys, this is what we need to do, man. Da, 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 da. Stop buying all them goddamn protein shakes. You eating them with your regular meals and you don't even work out. What are you doing? Or telling me about some new pill. I ain't getting no pill. We gotta get out, run, calisthenics, dips, push. You know the formula. We did this before. You know what I'm saying? Let's get the band back together. You see? So that's the voice coming from on high. You see? So that's like preaching to your thoughts. Because what are your thoughts? My thoughts are my brothers. These brothers, like, yeah, and all the reminiscing and da 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 and da da da. And then one brother, he was like, well, you still kind of height though. You just need to cut it up a little bit, but you still kind of like, I'm like, nah, I don't care about that kind of. Let's just get right. You know what I'm saying? Forget about the kind of. You know what I'm saying? So um that's even though I'm giving you this example, I know it may sound kind of humorous, you know what I mean? They weren't laughing. But they know me. We've been, oh man, we go back like 30 something years, maybe almost 40 years. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like 30 something years. So they know like, here you go. Like soon as I said, they was like, here you go. You know? So, but the thing is like those are still my thoughts. You see, these are thoughts that I've had. These people that I've known are thoughts that I have had. If I say we go back 35 years, let's just say, those are thoughts I've had for 35 years. So the one thought of always reminiscing 35 years, the one brother saying, oh, you still like, you still will knock a mother F out. You still kind of, yacked up. That's a thought that I have. I might put on a certain shirt one day and be like, oh, damn, all right. Yeah, the old man said, right? That's still a thought I have, right? But it's all wrong because when I go to my higher thought, it's like, look, mega dad bod, that ain't it. Okay. That ain't it. Because when you come up a flight of 5 or 6 steps, you still holding your breath before you ring somebody's doorbell. Your elevator's out. So that ain't it. Okay, you ain't got it. Why you just breathing through your nose, yo? All right. So I'll just give you examples, but that name sequence gives you, yeah, y'all laughing because y'all do the same thing. Y'all do the same thing. I went running with my sons recently, man. I had to explain that to them, man. Because he was like, yo, Bobby, you run so slow. Bobby, we're practically walking by. It's like, we're walking by. I was like, look, let me tell you something, man. I literally weigh about double what you weigh. So if we doing a 3-4 mile run, I'm doing like 6 to 8 miles. So technically, I had to explain to my son, like, technically, I'm doing more than you. I'm in better shape than you. I could actually stop at this point. Of course, he started laughing. My children think I'm just funny. They laugh at everything I say. But but yeah. So you're looking at formulas, right? From Adam to Noah, and you're seeing a path of redemption. But most importantly, what you're learning willfully is that there's so many. Actually sounds right to me. Felt right. I stopped right there. I was like, y'all keep going, man, because I'm technically doing more than you. You know what I mean? Shoot, man, I'm your protein shake when I get back. but, but yeah, so that's the thing, man. The formulas are deeply entrenched. So to imagine that you would ever read any of this on the surface and not recognize that there is a divine plan that's being mapped out for you, you really rob yourself, right? So if this is happening, again, it's 80 times. You got 80 names up into Yahweh. So it's a loop of 8. And that loop of 8 is in different ways, not that it's saying the same thing every single time, it's saying something different every time. But the theme again is that, yeah, there's an experience of humanity, and through some level of sacrifice, then comfort comes, right? But it's always the redemption of a line, and that was some of the things that we spoke about yesterday, which I thought were very important. In our Shema, like bringing forth children. How serious do we really take that? And even if you're at a place where, okay, maybe I can't physically create or produce children at this point, but how important is it to me that they still come forth, that I be instrumental in that process of helping to bring them forth, if you will, right? Because one of the things that you'll notice, like I said, with every single example, not example, excuse me, every single patriarch, you have this concept of, and he begot sons, daughters, and he begot sons, daughters, and he begot sons and daughters. And it's important to understand that sons and daughters are not just, it is, but not just my biological sons and daughters. Sons and daughters are also my servants, right? So for me, for instance, I have more children. Whenever time someone's like, "How many children do you have?" I don't even know, man, because I own an orphanage. And even here in the States, there's a lot of youth that I have raised. There's a lot of youth that I'm the only father that they know. I've had them since they were 6, 7, 5, 10, 11. You know what I mean? Um, and it's just Baba. It's just Baba Haru, right? So that is me bringing forth or begatting sons and daughters. I have a lot, man. I'm telling you, you'd be shocked. If I ever, it had to be like a football field type situation. If I ever decided I want to do a picture with me and my army, you'd be like, oh, damn, maybe I shouldn't have said anything slick about it. That's a lot of damn people. Yeah, there's a lot of us. um, And you might be like, but we only seen the one video you driving with your one son over there. And I know he's your biological son and all that, but yeah, you might see one or two here and they come to retreat, but you ain't gonna see all of them because they're behind the veil, right? And you never know. You never know who's walking behind you. Oh, you slick talkers. Um, New Jersey Silverbacks. Yeah, I call them the wolf pack. I'm the silverback. I don't know how the gorilla and the wolves go together, but my children are like wolves, man. They are wow. I don't know, man. I don't know what the heck what was produced then. You know what I mean? They're courteous. They're sweet. I have the sweetest children. Everyone loves being around them, but don't piss one of them off. Don't do nothing funny to me. It gets bad. You think, excuse me, I'm shoot. Anyway, let me get off that before I incriminate one of my children. um, but the point I'm saying is that when I say that having the sons and daughters, it's begatting them is rebirthing them, right? Um, there was a song I did years ago where I wrote that lyric in there, but essentially I was saying that reclaiming sons, right? Um, so there's a time when when you're doing your work and you're bringing so much fire, the immutable element that you're touching people and you're like it's like the Borg almost, so it's just like the work that I've done over the years. I've touched women who've been like, can my son hang out with your children? Can my daughter come and hang out with your daughter? Da, da, da. Because, and then before you know it, it's like, oh, she's sleeping over again. She's, oh, you done left some extra clothes over here for this one? Yeah, they downstairs playing. All right, whatever. Okay. you know, um, so what it is that you're now becoming a gateway of rebirthing. You see, so begatting sons and daughters, excuse me, it's not just a biological reproductive act. It's also the act of spreading your influence and expanding your homestead through the ability to rebirth people, but also to allow them to take away their reproach. All my youth have a hyphen anu on their name because Some of them, who are not biological have their father's last name, right? But there's no reproach. You see, when there's an incident and a father has to be there, they call Baba Ru's come in, right? So there's no reproach. Reproach means disappointment. You see, so they no one looks at them and says these are bastards. No one looks at them and says, "Oh, there's no father here." Yeah, there's father here. Big old violent father. Mess around if you want. But no one says that because their reproach has been removed. No different than our Isaiah, where seven women will take hold of one man, saying that, yeah, we will make our own bread. Just allow us to have your namesake. Just allow us to come into your household, be able to carry your name to remove our reproach, to remove the disappointment and the shame of being unwed, or to remove the disappointment and the shame of these children not having a patriarch, not having a head. So here, boom, you with us now. Come on, you with us. So reproach has been removed. You're good to go. Now go out in life and take shite over. Take it over because that's what we do, right? So that's just something I wanted to stress when you keep seeing the begot sons and go to begot. Yes, it is physical. It is physical. It is physical nation building. But again, it's not begot children, but it's a differentiation between sons and daughters because each one has an equally powerful role to play. You can build the structure, but someone's got to spread it out so that way it grows. It's just like I can give you all the structure and the framework, but someone has to say, typically the women, well, let's go talk to this brother over here. Let's talk to the sister over here. Let's have some children. Let's, absorb whatever it is a woman does, to expand. I'm not a woman, so I can't really speak to that. But whatever it is they do to multiply, you see, whatever it is they do to multiply is a strong part of what we call nation building, right? So when you see all of this, like when you're seeing all of the reading, you're seeing a nation that's expanding. Like I told you in the Genesis breakdown, you're looking at a seed, and then that seed is going forth, and it's getting wider and it's getting wider and wider and wider, just like the story is getting wider because that's the unfurling of humanity. That's why the deeper you go into the book, the more detailed the different stories. In the beginning it's like, and created this, and then this one did this, and then that one did that, and then that one, and that's it. And then the further you go, it's like, well, this one lived this long, and this one did this, and this one was taken up. This one lived that long, and then this one traveled to the land of that and did that. So you're seeing it happen like this, right? Which is the physical. I mean, excuse me. That's the maternal or the feminine aspect of it. The man is going to expand. And part of the expanding is like Ogun, like I'm going to make the road wider to even increase more bandwidth for the women to do what it is that they do, which is to multiply what it is that I am feeding into them. Right. Okay. So I just wanted to share that. And willfully, I said something that will help you, you know, um, whether it's about decentralizing your financing and learning a bit more about the blockchain, and or whether it's learning more about your own name. We're getting ready to go through an experience inside of Anu where, we put out a poll about who looks at their name. Like we had a great discussion. Sister Moksha had led the discussion on names. Like, what is your name? And what does it mean? Your current name. And one of the things that I had stressed in that was like, don't just go by, I looked it up and it says it means this and it said, go by also, what does it sound like? Like, what does it sound like? What thought comes to you when you hear that name? Or, like if my name is or like the young lady I had in my program, her name was Pandemonium, right? That was her name. And she acted just like her name, right? So we could look up Pan and be like, well, it's Pan, and Pan is like pineal, and Da to give, to give pineal, Niyum is plural, to give multiple pineal, or pineal multiplies, gives the multiplication. Yeah, you could break it down like that, right? But that ain't, but what does it sound like? Pandemonium. So what is the paradigm that it evokes in your mind as soon as you hear it? Pandemonium. And that's how she behaved. So we were able to have a good discussion around what are the immediate mental images and triggers that come when you hear your name or when your name is said. And of course now we're going um, into an experience now where we're going to be reassigning our names for the spiritual environment. And it's no different than, don't do, I know what you're getting ready to do. It's no different than decentralized finances where you have a public key and a private key. You're going to be like, that's the connection. No, no, it's not. But it's not. So with public, you have like, you might have a public name. Hey, out here in the world, they know me as, Cleavon, right? But Cleavon connects to something else. Maybe in the inner realm, I'm known as Ezekiel, right? So there's a private key and then there's a public key. But how are those two related to each other? How do those two connect to each other? Do they connect? Right? Some things you just got to do away with. Some you if I had a youth that came in with the name Pandemonium, like as far as coming into my household, oh, believe we would be filing name change paperwork. Like, yeah, that's not going on no driver's license. When you get older, that's gone. Me and your pops could, if pops is around, it is what it is. But if pops ain't around, like, yo, dog, like you could still call it that. but but no, we gotta get rid of that. There's nothing divine about that. There's nothing redeemable in that concept. As far as naming a little girl that. You know, so well, now she's not a little girl. So yeah, I would love to see how her life has went because she was having a heck of a time, as a youth when I had her with me in my program. Um, but nonetheless, like I said, so it's an important thing when you start looking at names and you see how the name tells a story. So even within your own family, what kind of story does your name tell, right? Um, when I was thinking about this concept for today, and I'm gonna just say this, we're gonna head out. I kept thinking about the artist Nas and his titles of his projects many years ago. He had did a succession of titles where one project was named, which was his best-selling project to date. It was written, um, and then the next one was "I Am" was the name of the CD, and then the next one was Nostradamus. So what he was saying in those three CDs was it was written, I am Nostradamus, right? So when you look at that, even sit back, look at your own family or look at your own plans. Am I naming things so that I'm telling a story? Or maybe even naming my children in a way so that a full statement is made about my household or a full statement is made about the progression and legacy of my blood, or it just sound sounds good. So that's just something I wanted you to all consider and think about, and you never know where the trigger comes from, right? Me, the trigger was Nas. And I thought about Nas, like, nah, that's I'm gonna do a show on that. But I just say the Nas thing to the end. But that's where the inspiration came from the artist Nazir Jones. All right, so everyone, please be well on this Sabbath. This is Chief Yuya. And I know some of you have also signed up to join our ministry, our New Life Global Ministries. You can continue to do that. The registration is a bit different now in that we're not doing um, group orientations anymore. Now you are interviewed. And if someone decides to sponsor you through the process of guiding you in, then it's a-okay. But like I said, this is an arc. This is an arc, and everyone can't come in. And that's just what it is. And I understand that a lot of people are not used to that concept, especially based on something that's presented on YouTube. It's like, well, I tuned in, I'm in. But you're not though. There's so many things that you don't get when you're not inside of the ministry. For instance, the naming experience that we're getting ready to go through, that's an internal thing, you know. So I just encourage those of you who have applied and want to, you know, you'll be getting, people are getting back to you, but who still are thinking about it. Just don't assume that this will always be as it is, because Methuselah gave you 969 years to get it right, right? Um, I've been on this for, like, at least online, for 11 years, right? 2010 is when I started, 11 going on 12, right? And you notice I don't do as many segments as I used to. There's no more Thunderground Thursday. There's no more Foundational Friday. There's no more I Knew a Side. Notice how over the years it's been slowly doing less. He's doing less. He's doing less. He's doing less. He's doing less. The door closes. All right, everyone. So enjoy your day. Please be well. All right. And be safe today. And willfully, some thoughts have been sparked. All right. Peace. Peace, 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 peace.